Welcome to the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast with your host, award-winning realtor Matt Glenn, and top-producing mortgage broker Taylor Atkinson. Professionals in the industry, enthusiastic entrepreneurs, and successful investors. When it comes to real estate, we're all in.
Welcome back to the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, it's that time of year. Matt, I have an amazing gift for you and our listeners today. I'm going to give you the secret of generating wealth, passive income, and not being stressed about it.
Okay, let's hear it. Lay it on me.
Yeah, so it's actually our guest today, Graeme MaGee from Century 21 Vernon. This guy has been an absolute lifesaver for me, manages some residential and commercial properties out there. And you know, when people talk about building a team in real estate, having a property manager that knows the ins and outs of the buildings and people to work with and trades and how to screen tenants is by far one of the most important roles. So,
and he's done it all. He was an agent. He's a manager. Yeah. Focus is more in North Okanagan, right? Vernon.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about the Vernon market.
Yeah.
He does commercial leasing, commercial sales. He did a huge project up in Silver Star when he first got in. So yeah, he's done a lot of really cool stuff. Yeah, he's been a huge help to me. So reach out to him if you're in that area and you got some commercial properties you want to talk about and leasing and property management, and does it all.
Yeah, it's a great episode to talk about.
Yeah.
Also, right at the perfect time of year for me to get COVID again, for the love of God.
Yeah.
I honestly kind of forgot that this is even still around, and then I just get whacked in the face with it.
Have you ever gotten it before?
Yeah, I got it before in the middle of the summer, I guess a year and a half ago. And like that one also took me down for a while. And then, yeah, I was sick yesterday and COVID never even crossed my mind. And then Becca, my wife, was like, you need to take a test. So I take a test, positive as hell. Like, you have got to be kidding me. I did not know this.
Yeah, you kind of forget about that stuff.
Yeah. Good thing we're doing this.
Yeah, so we recorded Graeme's episode a few weeks ago. So you're in the clear. But yeah, we did this recording for the intro recently.
I'm definitely housebound right now. Yeah.
But this is our last episode for the holidays. Then we'll take a 1 week break and we'll crack into the 2024 year with you guys. Yeah, we've got some great guests and we're creeping up on our 50th episode. So yeah, it's time to celebrate.
2024 is going to be a stellar year. I can just feel it. For the podcast.
Yeah.
For everyone. Year of prosperity.
For your immune system.
For my immune system. Yeah, definitely is going to be top notch for next year. But yeah, I think 2024 is going to be a good year all around. Mostly because the podcast is doing well, but other reasons too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we do well. You do well.
Yeah. We'll let you tune in to Graeme's episode here and enjoy it.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, welcome to the show, Graeme MaGee. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Or should I say, thanks for having us. We're in your office.
We invaded your office and making the most of it.
Yeah, so one question we like to ask right off the bat, just so our listeners can kind of get to know you. Tell us about your perfect Friday, what kind of gives you energy, and what makes you productive leading into the weekend.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people, they tend to say, I get up at 5 and I'm not that guy.
Matt's like, finally, someone that's honest with me.
As much as I'd like to say that I'm up at 5 and meditating and
cold shower.
Not really. No. You know, for me personally, it's roll out of bed, get the kids rolling. I mean, I've got a son that's 12 and then my daughter now, she's 17. So it's changed a little over the years, but got to get him going and out the door, get him to school. But for me personally, I mean, now we're getting into potentially ski season here. So, I mean, if I know that there's a big stash of POW to be had up at Silver Star, I'll get a hold of a buddy and we'll pop up there for a couple hours. I mean, that's the great thing about Silver Star and Vernon here. I mean, the proximity is 30 minutes basically, and you could be on the hill and get a couple good hours in and then back down and to the office.
Way closer than Big White is to Kelowna.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if people realize that, really the proximity is, from downtown here. You're on the hill skiing within 35 minutes. So
yeah. Which is crazy too, because they have an amazing village there. It's like you would assume like a ski hill that's only half an hour away from downtown wouldn't need such a good village, but it's pretty established, eh?
Yeah, and the growth over the last 5-10 years has been insane there. It's really taken off. So, barring these foreign buyer issue that's going on and so on. There's not been quite as much action, but there's still the locals, and just from, whether it be Ontario or Alberta, there's been lots of buyers up there. So it's still growing. Yeah. So from there, I'll pop down to my office here and get a decent day's work in. I mean, it really depends for me where I'm, back and forth between commercial or residential, what I'm doing for the day. I like commercial real estate and that side of the business a little because of, just a more of a Monday to Friday type scenario. So that's kind of a nice thing, but
day ends at 4.
Yeah. You know how it is, Matt. Like, you never know, right? I mean, you think, Friday afternoon, I should be able to take off, but people want to
Graeme like Saturday at 6 p.m., just because I know.
Just because he's free.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm the only one calling.
Yeah.
Here we go.
But then, finish off a day on a Friday with maybe the family getting together and going out for a bite to eat and hopefully there's not too many activities going on through the weekend, but
And Vernon's got more and more places to go for food nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming along.
It's coming. I mean, geez, we've got a cactus club now, so it's
you made it.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
I mean, to focus a little bit more on Silver Star too, like when you relocated to Vernon, that's kind of where the start was.
Yeah, I mean, I got a taste of Silver Star back in actually my college days. I did a co-op work term up at Silver Star and really loved it. I was taking hospitality management back then and did a winter up here. So subsequently back to Victoria, did a few years there, and then was in Vancouver for a number of years. And my wife and her family had moved here from Prince George, actually, down to Vernon. We were thinking about kids and so on, and it just came to the realization that, maybe Silver Star could be the place to look into. So sure enough, I did, and they were looking for someone to open up a new hotel up there. So I applied and got the job a week later, and so we're on the move. Sweet. And so I spent better part of 5 years up there managing hotels and properties and so on. And it was a good life.
Did you live up there? You lived in Vernon?
Lived part-time up there. Yeah, I had a place in the hotel there that I could stay at and so on. So that was great. So, yeah.
You managed, wasn't it a building that was being developed as well? Didn't you kind of like GC?
I got hired on for a project up there called Snowbird Lodge to open that up. And I arrived in July of 2005, I think it was, and it wasn't ready. And it was like, now what? They're
Where's
like,
your steel toes, bro?
Yeah. So they're like, do you want to run events for the Hill for the year? I'm like, sure. So I became their events manager for a year, and then sort of partway through the year, they're like, we are not going to get this hotel open next year, even if we don't like have somebody coordinating things. And so I jumped in that side of it and helped just coordinate it, getting that place ready to go. And subsequently the next fall we got open, and it's a beautiful property. I mean, it was 60 units. Every one of them had a hot tub, had, nice. High-end finishings. It was beautiful spot. So right at the end of the village there. So that was kind of the start for them. And Silver Star, they'd really never got into that accommodation side of things or owning their own properties. But so that was the start of it. And subsequently they've built another Firelight and other accommodations there. So it's taken off. Yeah.
Sweet. So what do you do now? Like, what's your day to day now? Like,
basically, after my days at Silver Star, I bounced around from a seniors care for a couple of years, and then that got me into getting a property management license. So, basically, there was a need there within the seniors community of they'd built a building, decided, they needed someone to manage this thing from an outside perspective with Strata being involved and so on. So I got my license, met the folks at RE/MAX and got on with them. And subsequently, they bought a book of business, which I in turn took over. Yeah. And did 10 years with RE/MAX, managing literally hundreds, if not thousands of properties. And that led to kind of realizing that where am I going with this? I mean, my license is well to sell. Yeah. And so then I was doing property management for residential, commercial, sales for residential, commercial. And just got to the point where it's too much, right? And you're just like, wow, I got to step back and realize what's going to be the best sort of focus and attention on here. So I led myself towards the commercial side of things more, and that's what I've been focusing on. But you look at Vernon and itself as a commercial entity back 10 years ago, there wasn't the extent of business to be had was not as great, right? Yeah. So now you had to kind of branch out and do a little bit of everything, but it's really changing. And, now obviously you look at Vernon, it's not just Vernon, right? It's Vernon itself has around 43,000 people. Yeah. But you've got Coldstream, that's basically part of Vernon. That's another 12,000. You've got Armstrong, you've got Lumby, you've got Enderby. So, combined, a little bit of Lavington too, yeah. So, but I mean, that combined total is over 70,000 people.
Yeah.
And those smaller communities really don't have the infrastructure to sustain. They've got the odd restaurant, they've got, but they don't have a Walmart, they don't have a Home Depot, they don't have all that kind of stuff. So, we get a lot of that.
Or a Cactus Club.
So,
yeah, they're coming here.
And what have you been seeing as a trend then? Like population growth? Like, are you seeing a lot of people you're saying from maybe not overseas, but from Vancouver, Toronto, or even, Kelowna, are coming into Vernon because it's somewhat more affordable, or you can get a bigger lot and better lifestyle?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Vernon is kind of the Langley to Vancouver kind of scenario where, things are a little cheaper here. Your average house price, we're hovering around $760, in the high times of COVID, that got up into the eights, but really, it definitely a lot more affordable compared to a Kelowna. Yeah. And through those COVID years, just the population growth here and the folks from Toronto and all these people are realizing that we can work from wherever. I mean, I remember having some clients that moved here from Toronto that were working for the University of Toronto and the CAA. And basically they said, they just could go wherever they want. So they're like, let's go to the Okanagan. And when they kind of had a choice between, there's Penticton, Kelowna, Vernon, there's those few options that people look at and they decide, for our family, I mean, this is a really family environment of, things to do here. They've got 2 lakes, you've got ski hills, you've got golf courses here. So, there's a lot to offer. And it's just a matter of, that residential push is really now led into what the commercial side of things is. Just we need to catch up on the infrastructure around commercial property, what's here.
Yeah, so let's focus on that a bit. Like in terms of commercial small businesses, demand meaning there isn't enough leasable commercial space, or there just aren't enough small businesses to support the population growth?
Well, I mean, we're getting to a point where they're starting to realize that, listen, those commercial spaces need to be built for small business, because Vernon's kind of a dichotomy of, there's the old heritage style 30th Avenue properties where we are here. And then there's the north end of town that's got more of the big box type stuff and the newer buildings. But we're at the point where there needs to be that infill of smaller commercial spaces, office spaces, and so on that either are renovated or new, that these folks can look at putting their small businesses into, because really there's a huge demand. I mean, I know in the last while, I've been doing a lot of leasing, and it's, RMTs, physios, doctors' offices, things that are needed. There's just a real void in the Vernon market right now where, some of those things just need to play out here soon. So it looks like they're coming too.
Do you work with a lot of dentists? Do you see them all?
I do, actually.
Where is this going?
You drive around Kelowna and Vernon and other places too, but I've noticed this, that there's a lot of brand new dentist offices. I'm like, what? This business is booming. We must have the most beautiful teeth in our area. Honestly, because so many of the new buildings are dentist offices. And I had a client call it. They want to spend $12 million on a dentist office. Looking around town, there already is a whole bunch. Obviously they know that there's a demand for this.
Well, there's a dentist office just around the corner in this building.
Yeah. And they just did a big reno because I think they realized they looked around and they're like, geez, if we don't reno this place and get it up to the...
Well, they did think about leaving, right? And they couldn't, I guess, find anywhere that was suitable. So they reinvested into the building.
Yeah.
But on that point, so I have a dentist friend and she's looking to buy a practice or build her own.
I bet she is.
Yeah. So we went out for a walk up in the trestles, behind Kelowna there, East Kelowna. And we took the old way out. Have you seen the Save-On site up there?
No, I don't think I have.
It has got to be the wealthiest Save-On site in the world. It's got a 180 view of the lake. It is unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah. I'm driving by.
The first grocery store in history to have windows?
Yeah. I'm I would come here just for the view.
Yeah.
But I think when she was looking at it, was $44 a square foot or something. They were talking about doing leasing. That is insanely expensive. I don't know how you're going to profit that way.
You just go to a dentist, dude. That's how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Jim Patterson, he must be making a ton there. So in terms of lease rates in Vernon then, you're telling me I bought in the wrong part of town. So you're saying up there is, I guess it's developing, it's newer infrastructure. Does just the general resident of Vernon want to spend more time there, or do they want to build businesses there?
Not necessarily, because like I say, I've shown property up there a lot, and it's like you say, you're looking at $30 a square foot. Your TI cost to build out a space. I mean, I was talking to one dentist in particular. We were looking at a space and, you're looking at 2,500 square feet and his build out cost was going to be $450,000 plus his $7+ a month. Yeah. So yeah, like you got to be a dentist or someone like that to be able to afford those kind of prices. So it is tougher for that smaller business to get in because of just the way some of those costs, where you've got the downtown core here where some buildings are still in that kind of pre-70s look and style and so on, that theoretically you're looking at $14 to $17 a square foot, with triple net, maybe around 20. So that certainly a little more reasonable.
Yeah. So maybe we can break that down for a listener a little bit too. So like when we're talking $30 a square foot, that's annualized, right? So it's 1,000 square feet. So it'd be 30 grand over like a 12-month period. And then when you're talking triple net, do you want to explain that a little bit? Like generally how that would work?
Yeah. So triple net, you're looking at your city taxes, your insurance, and your common area maintenance. So those three costs, so whether it be, snow plowing and the common area maintenance type stuff. So that all rolls into those expenses. So you generalize that, whether it be, like I say, around $10 in the north end of town, maybe in closer to the downtown area, you're looking more in that sort of 5 to 7. Yeah. But yeah, basically, the big one is taxes. And then insurance, of course, has gone up a little bit over the years too here. Basically, at the end of the year, you reconcile that to an actual and go from there. But
yeah, so the benefit of like a commercial investor finding one of these, they know their profit margin because they're going to do, say, $15 a square foot. And then the extra $5 a square foot for triple net, give or take, would then be paid for by the tenant. So you're not going to see that volatility as like a commercial landlord, but that's saying if you can get somebody into a triple net lease, that's kind of the benefit of doing the commercial, but it's also hard to put that onus on somebody that also doesn't want that volatility, right? When we're talking like small commercial spaces for small business owners, it works fine with like Home Depot. Yeah. They get it. But when you're trying to put a smaller business owner, it's hard to put that cost on them.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where you're looking at a gross lease. And as the landlord, you've got to look at it a big picture and sort of say, okay, well, what are my operating costs? And subsequently try and keep those increases coming every year to two. And hopefully it works out. Yeah.
Are most of the leases triple net or gross, or what do you do most?
Most of the time they are triple net. Yeah, for sure. But like Taylor's saying, it's those smaller operators that you're dealing with that just can't wrap their head around, well, why am I paying, the cleaning of a 4-story building when I'm only using my little 800 square feet here. So yeah, I can see both sides of it, to be honest. But
yeah, totally. Yeah. And then I guess, same context, like, so this is a mixed, commercial residential building. Like the last few years, we've essentially had like a rent freeze for residential units. How do you make up the lost expenses that the landlord, i.e. me, these capital expenditures?
We knew it would get back to this.
Yeah. But yeah, so you prefer commercial leasing because like you're working with small businesses, you get to kind of dissect someone's, business plan essentially and figure out if it's a good fit.
Yeah. When I'm comparing commercial leasing versus, let's say, residential tenancies, absolutely, I'm going to go the commercial leasing route all day long just because of the volatility from the RTB and the likes. But, commercial leasing, you're involving a lawyer from day one and they're setting the terms out. And really, as somebody that's managing said lease, it just makes life a lot easier where, you're basically just following what that lease says. And it's much more structured. Basically, it's just easier to deal with day to day. So, yeah.
Do you find it pretty easy to find tenants, commercial spots?
There's been a lot of demand. Yeah, there's been a ton of demand of late. Since COVID, there's been a lot of volatility out there, but there's been a lot of people coming back to the market and a lot of people looking for spaces. In a lot of cases, they're having to, though, potentially team up with other people and kind of go with that shared office situation just because of rates going up and the likes and just the volatility of, businesses in general, small businesses in town here. So, yeah.
As a commercial investor, where would you put your money in Vernon?
Light industrial has really been a focus here. There's a lot of new projects coming to town as well that are going to see that light industrial business take off, I think, in general. And it's something where I know, like at the end of Anderson Way, for example, we've got a project coming there that's the Salt Center. That's 9 buildings, 350,000 square feet. But they're going to stratify some of that where people can get in and buy certain strata lots there and so on. Yep. There's the Commerce building up there. There's the vaults that are being built. Well, Sheraton's 4 Points is putting in a hotel and conference center up there. So there's a lot going on at that end of town as well. Just on the way up to Silver Star, there's Silver Star Gateway project. That's into third phase now. They've leased out the first two. And so a lot of that has been focused on light industrial, but they're realizing that they've kind of gotten to a point where we got to incorporate a little more retail in. So that's going to be the third phase. And so, from a commercial investor, people are looking for those services. People are looking to see where they can bring those businesses to town. I mean, there's obviously the Walmarts and the Home Depots and so on. They're getting established, but I think there's definitely some opportunities there. So,
yeah. So you're thinking the North End for sure.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this core downtown, from a zoning standpoint, there's a lot of heritage still involved. So you're going to have to do some rezoning there. I know there's a project that just went to council this week that's 95 condos with commercial on the bottom. And so that's intriguing. So that's going to bring some densification to the downtown core here. There's another project on Alexis Park Drive, which is just sort of 2 blocks from here. Yeah. And that's actually 3 towers, 10 stories each, commercial on the bottom. So it's a company out of Edmonton that's heading that up, Joss Can, I think, properties. So we'll see. I mean, the reality is that we've gotten to the point in Vernon and surrounding areas that, buying your piece of land and building a home has gotten to be a tough proposition. So, we're realizing that, densification needs to happen. And that's what this downtown core is going to see over the next little bit. So subsequently, we get that kind of influx of residential units. They're going to need the services. They're going to need the restaurants and so on. I mean, even now you come downtown on a Friday evening and it's tough to get in to a lot of these restaurants and places. So yeah, it's coming.
So Emily and I, obviously, we lived in Vernon for 8 months when we came back from overseas, and there's some awesome spots like Martin's Brewery. Is it Martin's?
Yeah, Martin's Brew House.
Yeah. Awesome spot. The ramen place down below. Yeah, there's good Mexican place, good sushi. Like, it's got those good little hubs. And even the Field of Scare for Halloween.
Oh, yeah, out at a Keefe Ranch there. Yeah.
I went, it was insane, like hundreds of people. I don't know. Well, I guess it comes from the 75,000 people surrounding, but it is a cool spot. I know you're laughing, but
I think it's awesome.
We had Taylor Musso on a couple episodes ago, and we were kind of debating at the end, the difference between Penticton and Vernon and which one's better to invest in. To me, they seem like such different asset classes.
I agree with that totally.
Maybe I was a little more biased, saying, hey, I like Vernon because I feel it's more stable for growth in terms of people live here year round. There's small businesses. It just seems to be a little more like this is a larger community base where Penticton seems more transitory. But then she countered with a lot of very valid points. So I was completely torn. But I guess what's your take on it? Like between the two, not that you have to pick one or the other, but what makes Vernon unique within the Okanagan?
If you asked my 17-year-old daughter, she'd be like, get me out of here, because there's just so... I'm graduating high school and then I'm out of here. I think a lot of it has to see, where you are demographically and so on. But, for your average family that is raising their kids here and so on, it's got a lot to offer as far as, yes, we don't have the best rec center and pools and so on, but those are all coming, right?
And they're not bad. They're pretty nice here.
And, Cal Tire Center, there's a huge development going beside Cal Tire Center where they're going to do a new pool, a new... all that stuff is coming. So, from, like you say, seasonality standpoint, between the golfing and the hiking and the lakes, I mean, Cal Lake is one of the most beautiful lakes in
the world.
It's
a nice,
and then you've got Okanagan Lake where, I live just at the head of Okanagan Lake there. We can look down. I could literally get in a boat and go all the way to Penticton if we wanted. So
stop by my place for lunch.
Exactly. So, from a perspective of, raising a family and doing all that kind of stuff, I mean, just there's endless. And then you get the winter and it's got Silver Star, you've got snowmobile trails, there's a ton of stuff going on here.
Also, Vernon is kind of the gateway to the north of BC, also Alberta. It's closer to the highway. Like Penticton is really farther away from that kind of stuff. Right? So obviously Kelowna's in the middle, but I think Vernon is underrated from the point of close to Kamloops, close to where the industries are happening.
Kamloops, Alberta, having such close proximity. Yeah, huge value there.
Yeah, come every June, it's what's the red invasion? You see all the red license plates, and it's it's great though. I mean, that brings a ton of business to our, and they want to bring their boats. They want to buy up expensive lakefront property. And so, I mean, if we need to get into the whole short-term...
well, yeah, they won't have anywhere to stay. But now the Sheraton's building. So
yeah, I don't know about that argument of, just build more hotels and that'll cover off the short-term stays. Yeah. Exemptions, I'm not sure, but anyways.
Well, now that I'm looking at this office, it would be a good little mini hotel room we could start getting some revenue on. To circle back to the investment piece, to me, Vernon seems like it still has a lot of growth, but in terms of like lease rates, I don't know the Kelowna market that well for lease rates, but it seems fairly comparable for the cost you're buying out here. Like you do a bit of leasing in Kelowna too, right?
Yeah, I do.
Like obviously it's hard to generalize, but at say $20 a square foot inclusive of triple net. Well, I mean, you could say $30 because it's a newer product in North Vernon. Are you finding similar products in Kelowna, or is it astronomically more expensive?
I wouldn't say astronomically, but I'm sure there's 15 to 20% more in Kelowna area I've found. Geez, I mean, I did one at that Urban Point Center there, and that was over $50 a square foot. And I thought to the tenant going in there, I'm like, are you serious? Like, you really want to do this? And she's like, yeah, it's where I want to be, and it's going to get the traffic. So from a general standpoint, much like real estate, from a residential standpoint, commercial real estate here is probably, you've got your 15 to 20% less, I'd say, here.
I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of a cap rate for an investor, there's more room to grow here, I find. So if you're buying in Kelowna, I don't know, use like a low 4 to mid 4 cap. Vernon, you can still see in the 5s. Like
I still see, 5s and 6s occasionally. So
in today's market, that's a really healthy cap rate if you're buying in terms of investment property.
There again, we get a lot of calls from Vancouver and so on where they, subsequently they're looking at 3% cap rate down there. And it's like, they're like 6. Are you kidding me? We get a lot of spin-off from that where there's folks from the coast that are looking at us up here as well and saying, the potential is there for sure.
Yeah. And for a listener, it's basically just if you were to buy a property in cash, like not be debt servicing it, that's kind of the return on investment is the capitalization rate. So to invest in Vancouver at a 2 or a 3% cap, you're banking on that there's good appreciation in terms of rental income. There's always going to be that demand, less vacancy. And then, you move to Kelowna and inherently there's going to be a little bit more quote unquote risk. So that's why the cap rate goes up because it's, a better return for the investor. But to drive an hour and increase your cap rate by 0.5% to a full percent, to me is just kind of a no brainer. If someone's looking to get into the market as an investor, I still feel strongly that like Vernon, Penticton, kind of the outshoots of Kelowna, are a lot of investors still finding product here to invest in that are interesting?
There is, but it's starting to get to the point where the secret's out though a little bit. So it's starting to get a little sparse, but overall, I mean, you look at it as well, the airport's only 25 minutes away, right? So a lot of people will look at that and say, really, if I'm, working internationally or, looking for good shopping and the likes, what's a 45-minute drive into Kelowna? It's not too bad. So
well, it was a bit of a trick question. If you said, I have a lot of inventory for good investors, I'm like, why aren't you sending me in?
Yeah. Like I grew up in Vernon and we hardly ever went to Kelowna. Like we did a little bit, like probably like once every 3 months or something. But now I just feel like the distance has almost gotten shorter. I don't know if that's just because I'm older and driving myself, or like it just feels like it's not that big a deal. Like
that highway made a little bit of a difference too, where they scoot around Wood Lake there and stuff. So it doesn't feel like
it's less than an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're working somewhere up north, like Fort McMurray or something, like driving the 40 minutes to the airport compared to living in the lower Mission, like it's probably the similar distance, like time-wise driving to the airport.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So I don't think that's a huge factor.
No.
You were talking before actually Predator Ridge. I didn't realize the numbers up there, how big they were.
Yeah. Over 1,000 people living up there.
That's insane.
1,300 acres of property that they have. They're just constantly expanding, heading sort of south towards Cars Landing way. It's insane. So
thinking of Tower Ranch, where it's like lease land properties for the residential. Is it lease land up there, or is it freehold?
No, it's freehold. Yeah. The latest project, I think it was called Outlook. I just saw some advertising on it. We're talking $1.8 million townhouse, 4-bedroom townhouse. It's like, really? But they're selling. It just keeps expanding, and they've got Sparkling Hill on top there, which has become a real destination point for a lot of people as well, where they're not golfers. They're coming there to hang out at the spa for a couple of days. And so it's really become a international destination as well. But at the same time, they've kind of priced us locals out of the golf market. I mean, I think it's $250 to go play a round of golf there now. So it's not for the faint of heart, for sure.
Yeah.
But
It's only
a beautiful spot. 120.
I was going to say it's $1 a swing fee. That's pretty good.
It's a nice course.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Sparkling Hills is nice too. It's kind of like James Bond when you're driving into it. I don't know. Maybe you guys can comment. It feels a little outdated. Like we've only been there once. Doesn't it? When was it built? Like 20 years ago?
No,
I'm gonna get sued by the owner of Sparkling.
No, I think it was finished being built like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, time flies, hey?
Jeez. How many million did they spend on that? That was $180 million.
These crystals are just so out right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're so 2010.
That whole property, though, in general, is just, it's amazing what they've done up there, and it's just not stopping. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on with the college? Just like up the hill as you're leaving Vernon, I see they're building like a large structure there too.
They're building residence there as well. So
really?
That's something there again. I think it's 6-story building with 70 plus units. So yeah, they're going to have a on-site residence there as well. And yeah, that college is there again, from a trades perspective, that has to do with that trades program that they've got going there. They're somehow interconnected, and it's really taken off. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, just on the drive out here, it's got to be one of my favorite drives. I mean, you probably do it more often than I do, Matt, but like Cal Lake is just insane there. And then the rail trail, like we've done that a couple times. There's some good wineries like Oyama area over to here. Like I just find there's so much potential in this region that's kind of untapped. Maybe the one downfall that hasn't been exposed yet is like the lakefront properties are residential lakefront properties. Like there's not a lot of like boardwalks, small businesses. Is there anything in the pipeline for that?
There is, like down the end of Okanagan Lake there's definitely some development potential, and there's been some plans. There's been some towers that are proposed and so on, and a full commercial setup there, but just hasn't come together yet. So a lot of that land that talking of, though, it's fairly marsh type land that's going to need a fair bit of infrastructure and so on to pull it together. But eventually will happen, but it also borders on native land there as well. So there's going to have to be some consultation between the band there and what they own and what they deal with, and as well, just private enterprise. So that would be huge for the area if we could take advantage of that beautiful lakes, so, but whereas Vernon proper is sort of more in the middle of those two lakes and really doesn't take advantage of that, similar to Kelowna.
I think Penticton does. Such a missed opportunity in Vernon. Yeah. Where you have like the city, like you have two beautiful lakes and you build your city farthest part.
They just couldn't decide which lake they wanted to be on.
Exactly. So like literally a 20-minute drive to either lake. Maybe not that much, 15 minutes. Yeah. To either lake from downtown. And then you start building north, you're just getting farther away. I just thought that was a little bit crazy. Like Cow Lake is one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. There should have been like some places for the public to enjoy, not just the beach, but like trail, like you said, like a walking path and some stores. And yeah, I think there should be some planning for that.
Certainly Coldstream District and so on, the rail trail starting right there. Yeah. They've got a cafe going and, stand-up paddleboard shop that's super successful. So they're trying, it's coming. There's Sun Country Cycle open down that way. Yeah, that's their nice businesses, beautiful buildings. So, I mean, they're trying, but kind of the logistics of how it's played out hasn't been super successful yet. But yeah, there's potential there. It's just a matter of...
I think Coldstream, too, has like a really big NIMBY reputation. Like not in my backyard.
Yeah, I mean, for good reason. I'd probably be the same if I was there. Coldstream's such a cool little pocket. I would be super protective of that. Are people like divided in Vernon? If you're like, oh, you're from Vernon, they're like, no, I'm from Coldstream. Like, is it
totally? Yeah. I got buddies that are like, hey, you gotta have your passport to come over to Coldstream. Like, there's just a whole nother level here.
It was weird, even for lenders. So I did a mortgage in Coldstream, and the lender was like, oh, our municipality population has to be over a certain.
They wouldn't lend in Coldstream?
Well, they were against it because of the population listed. Like, obviously, these lenders aren't local. Well, some of them aren't local. Yeah. So this one was out east, and they were like, well, the population there on the census, I forget what it was like less than 10,000 people or something. And they're like, so we can't lend there. I was like, well, if you just Google Vernon, it's kind of the same, right? Same, yeah. Then I kind of thought
it's not exactly the Rutland to your Kelowna.
I'm like, am I insulting someone from Coldstream by saying it's the same as Vernon? But I mean, they would use Vernon Hospital, right? It's
absolutely, yeah.
That's odd. That's someone that obviously just does not know what's going on. Yeah. Right? That's too funny. Yeah.
But yeah, I would protect Coldstream too. Like Cousins Bay. Awesome.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay. Before we kind of get into some of the wrap up stuff, if someone's looking for property manager in terms of commercial space, what should you kind of look for? I mean, diving in off script here, but yeah, what are kind of the key things that you offer clients that really help benefit them?
I mean, a lot of it comes down to the relationship of trusting said property manager to basically take your investment to that next level, right? And so, like I say, I've been at property management for about 15 years here and doing a lot of residential. And now for the last 8 years, I guess, doing a lot of commercial as well, where really it comes down to, that trust factor of, okay, getting the most out of your property and sort of having a look at, the overall grand scheme of what capital improvements have to happen. What connections does that property manager have in town to help find, you the best deal, so to speak, and subsequently be able to work through those issues and try and, without spending outrageous amounts of money, really just get the best bang for your buck overall and really look at how are you playing out that scenario over the next, 5 to 10 years. And subsequently, said investor has to realize that it's a long-term play. Where is that going to end up down the road here? So, yeah.
Well, you've always been a very calming person for me in my life. I think back to when we're both watching the video cameras on, say, a New Year's when the basement's flooding because the sprinkler system went off. Just a great person to talk to in those chaotic type moments. You need to align just in like morals, ethics, the way you want to approach things. So yeah, when you and I first started to work together, I remember, and I probably came off as a bit of a douche, but like
he does.
Yeah, still do. Yeah. I'm much better when it's edited, so that's why I put everything on recording now. But yeah, like I did the vivid vision exercise, and I've spoken about this book before, where you kind of like lay out, what your 3-5 year goal is. And I sent that off to you, and we met like a couple times prior, and then I sent that off, and we had like lunch, and in there it was like snowboarding and health and family and business and all this stuff. And I was like, I really want us to have a relationship where it's like we can go do a business meeting on the ski hill and chat on the chairlift and come up with solutions. So I'm proud to say we did that last year.
Yeah. Got that in once.
Worst ski day ever. Massively mild out. Graeme and I were both like stuck in the snow. It was slush. There's trees that fell over freaking everywhere.
Oh no.
I know. My experience on Silver Star has not been that great. But the point is, like, I think we align really well on, how we want to deal with things in the future of the building and just our lives in general, having a good balance. So
for me too, I mean, it's having that relationship with the tenants, whether they be commercial or residential as well, and gaining their trust that I'm overseeing this property in the best of their interests as well. And at the end of the day, I don't only work for the landlord. You have to give them the impression that, you're as much invested in their business and you want them to succeed, right? I mean, the businesses within Sun Valley, for example, I mean, they're all doing quite well, I think. And I think that's because they feel confident that overall they're happy with the way things are going, I think, as well. So that's a big factor too, where you just have to, gain everyone's trust really in the end of the day. So,
yeah. Well, and you've done a really good job too. I mean, it's kind of like matchmaker. Like you're placing all these tenants that like collectively have to work under one roof and get along and feed off each other, So yeah, it's not an easy job to place a tenant, right? You're thinking just lots of people are saying, great, I'll just buy this building and fill the vacancy. But if you put a wrong tenant in, whether residential or commercial, it could be catastrophic. So
yeah. And I mean, certainly from a residential standpoint, that's become a huge issue out there where investors have been reluctant to have rental properties just because of that. I don't want to deal with the tenant scenario because what happens if they stop paying their rent? They're causing issues. And unfortunately, the way tenancy board has the rules laid out, it can be a difficult thing. But if you're doing it by the book and you have a good relationship with those people and they understand that you're not coming down on them and you're not trying to be, heavy-handed, so to speak, then really, hopefully in the end of the day, you're able to get through those issues and not take it to arbitration, because that's the last place I'd want to be.
Yeah. Do you deal with the RTB a lot? Obviously you do, but like if there's an issue, like how does your role work with that?
Yeah. So if you're acting as the agent for the landlord, as the property manager, you are the one that ends up dealing with an arbitration, whether it be, non-payment of rent or an issue over deposits or things like that. But yeah, you're the one that deals with that It's a conference call with the tenant, but first 10 years or so, or not even 8 years of doing this, I think I was in a multitude of arbitration cases, and generally it would go well. It seems like over the last 4 to 5 years where the government is basically put in place where they're like, you know what, do everything in your power to try and keep said tenant in place because of housing issues and so on. And it's become a much more difficult process for a landlord or their agent to deal with. So I can understand the frustration there for sure.
Yeah, we got to start wrapping this up a bit. So if you could purchase one property in the Okanagan in the next year, what would it be?
Thinking about this, and I mean, I've got a daughter, like I said, that's graduating high school this year. So we're thinking about where's she going to go off to in the next year or two. And, the idea of the campus downtown in Kelowna is pretty inviting. And you guys were on with one varsity there. Sid Land. Yeah. So he made a lot of good points there. So, I mean, depending on where that comes in, I mean, something like that would be a fantastic idea where, I could potentially purchase. Daughter could live there for a few years, and then subsequently my son, he's 12, maybe he'll end up there one day, but from an overall investment, I think that'd be a good buy for sure.
Fully agree.
What's the best thing you've ever spent any money on?
Actually, something I just purchased weeks ago, and I actually haven't had a chance to use them yet, but I've got a custom pair of ski boots coming in that are like high end. So yeah, that's one of my pet peeves, is getting up to a ski hill and it's -20 and you're putting this plastic boot on your foot. It's just so uncomfortable. So I got a buddy that works at Olympia Ski and Bike here in town, and so he's setting me up with a sweet pair of boots. So I'm hoping they'll make all the difference this year. So
they will.
Yeah.
They will.
What's the best book or quote you have for us?
I got to be honest, I'm not a big reader, but I do love the Malcolm Gladwell series there, and the Outliers book was fantastic. Just perspective of the way he takes statistics and runs with them, where a big hockey guy, NFL guy, that kind of stuff, and he laid out how 80% of NHL players were born between the months of January and March, and how that subsequently...
I read that book too. He's talking about the Kelowna Rockets in that book too. And
is he?
Yeah, he is. And he talks about how he doesn't name the players on the team, but he names their birthdays. And they're like, all the players are before April, and it's because of the draft, because of the way you enter hockey. It's like,
because you're going to be bigger, right? Because you're
always going to be a little bit bigger, and then by the time it doesn't matter, you've already put yourself ahead.
Because I see that too. I mean, I'm a soccer guy as well. I play a lot, and I coach my daughter's team, and I noticed that through her progression from the age of sort of 9, 10. I've coached her team all along, and I'd ask them, I'm like, what's your birthday? I mean, my daughter's in March, for example. And when you look at a 15-year-old that is born in January, February, March versus October, November, there's a huge gap there, right? And then as well, bigger kids, say, or you've got that advantage. So then you make the A team. Yeah. Better coaching, and then you get so it all lends to that. So it's amazing how that kind of plays out, and I've kind of kept it in the back of my mind when I was just chatting with some of the kids that I've coached over the years as well. So
that book is so interesting because I have read that book a few times, but it's like, that's awesome to do with like sports, just because of when you start, but also like he's talking about the tech billionaires and like the years they were born were basically the most important factor, and like Bill Gates and all these guys, like it was basically, he just laid out how the year they were born, where they were born, was pretty much the most important factor.
So this is why I'm not successful. Finally, I've been looking for something to blame it on, and this is it.
Likewise, I'm an October birth, and I'm like, that's why I sucked at hockey. It wasn't that I hated getting up at 5 a.m. to go to practice. It was that I was born in the wrong month.
I know. It is super interesting, though, when you start breaking it down like that.
Yeah. We've got one more question for 'Tis the Season, because this is getting into the Christmas months. What is a charity of choice you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, being part of Century 21, we're involved with Easter Seals Camp, and Camp Winfield is one particular one that we deal with in the Okanagan here. So every deal that we do, we do $21 because it's Century 21, goes towards camp there. And it's something that resonates with me because actually my father, near the end of his career on Vancouver Island, he actually started his own prep school, actually. There was a feeder school into private schools and English as a second language. Long story there. But anyways, he was managing Easter Seal Camp Shawnigan and lived right there for a number of years. So I would go back and visit them in the summer and so on. There'd be camps going on, and I just got a real soft spot for that charity in general. And what they provide to those kids each year is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think Emily actually did a camp there as well, because she's obviously from the Cowichan Valley. And yeah, that's a really good one.
It's a cool spot, yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I grew up over on the island, Shawnigan Lake, and another beautiful lake to grow up on. So it's a cool
really
spot. Yeah, awesome. For sure.
All right, Graeme, how can us or our listeners help you?
Give me a call, look me up on Instagram and so on. But I mean, from a commercial property management, that's my focus, and commercial in general, leasing and sales and so on. So if anybody wants to know anything going on in the Vernon and area, because it's just not Vernon, like I say, there's Armstrong, there's a lot of surrounding areas that we do business in as well. So look me up.
What's been the biggest book of business you had for like units under management?
I'm looking at the guy right now. No, when I was with Remax, I mean, I was managing well over 200 units with them. So it was, it was, I think, 220 or so. And so, that was pretty, it's a lot.
Yeah. Matt managing 2? You're cursing every night about it? Yeah. I'm blown away how calm you can be.
You've looked at the top of my head though, right? So it's there's a reason I don't have any hair anymore. I've had some interesting horror stories, but at the same time, it's all good now. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for letting us invite ourselves to your office, and appreciate the insight on the Vernon market.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast. Be sure to reach out and let us know how else we can add value to your Kelowna real estate journey. Please show some support by hitting the like, share, and subscribe button. This is sponsored by Matt Glenn Real Estate and Taylor at Venture Mortgages.